Entitled Karen stole my baby. Enjoy your court date on December 25th. One afternoon, after a mommy and me yoga class, me and my daughter decided to get a coffee and catch up. While I would get coffee, she would get milk, while my daughter, the lightweight that she is, passes out after the milk. I decided to be wild and get that second cup of coffee. I'm drinking my second cup of coffee when a wild, entitled mom and her child appear. She looked to be in her late 40s and had blonde hair with the Ellen DeGeneres haircut. The mom says the baby is so cute. I smile, but go back to reading the news and sipping my coffee. When I look up, the child is trying to pick up my sleeping baby. I panicked, obviously, and yelled at her to stop right now. The mom says, oh, she wasn't hurting her. The child whines and asks for the baby, and I say, she's sleeping and you're too little to hold her, honey. She's heavy. The mom just keeps asking me to let her child hold the baby, and I tell her no again. The mom says, you don't have to be a jerk. I then ask, excuse me, while the child tried to pick up my daughter and woke her up, which made my daughter cry. I look over at the Karen and she has a devious smile, almost like she was plotting on her next move. At the same time, my daughter is crying very loudly and is disturbing the coffee shop. I pick her up and start hushing her. I tell her to leave us alone, but the mother quickly tries to grab my daughter and I and turn away while she's still crying. The mother keeps trying to grab my baby and I fight back. At this point, the coffee shop employees jump in and pull her away. One of them says that they called the police. The mom's nose is hurt and her child is sobbing. I feel bad for the kid. She's little, but her mom should teach her better. The employees ask us to stay and wait for the police to arrive. The mom starts accusing me of hurting her and scaring her child. While this happened, my daughter is still crying, so I start to feed her. The mom then accuses me of exposing myself to a child and calling me the P word. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe she said those words out loud in front of everyone, especially in front of the children. I try my best to ignore her and my daughter finally comes down. The police came and asked to see what happened. She claims I exposed myself to her daughter and hurt her. The officer looked like he believed her. I was so afraid that I was going to go to jail, so I told him that she tried to steal my baby and I was just protecting her. Luckily, the coffee place had cameras. The police took a look at the cameras for about an hour. Me and Karen were just waiting outside with another officer that came by. It was the longest hour of my life. Suddenly, the officer comes out and immediately instructs the officer outside with her to grab Karen. She got arrested for attempted kidnapping. I have to go to court for it next month in December for the criminal charges against the mom for attempted kidnapping. Me and my daughter went to the park this morning. We got back around 11 a.m. There was a man standing on our porch looking lost. My daughter was in her stroller, sleeping. I put my hand in my purse and onto my face. I asked what I could help him with. The strange man said he was looking for someone with blonde hair and brown eyes and about 5'2" to deliver an envelope. I tell him it's me, and I take the envelope, and as soon as it's in my hands, he reveals his identity as a legal intern. He then tells me I'm being sued. Yep, that's right, I'm being sued by the mother. Why would the woman who tried to snatch my baby be suing me? How much damage could I have inflicted? Well, apparently I did $45,000 in damage. In this poor envelope was about 50 million pages detailing how she is suing me for everything that is wrong in her life. Apparently, I had broken her nose, so she's suing me for not only related medical bills, but she also wants me to pay for them to fix her pre-existing to-dos. Oh, and of course, emotional damages to her and her child. Apparently, the mom has anxiety and depression because of me. The kid has PTSD from the incident. Finally, I'm also being sued for slander and character assassination, because how dare I say she tried to steal my baby? Am I the jerk? 250-pound Karen assaults me because I'm mute and deaf and receives instant karma. I'm an 18-year-old guy and I have some unique challenges since I was born deaf and mute and I'm partially blind in my left eye. My big sister, who's 28, has taken care of me ever since our parents passed away. But now, she's on her honeymoon and I'm on my own for a few weeks. So yesterday, I had to go out alone. There's this new supermarket nearby and I needed to buy some stuff for the house since I've been stress eating because I hate being home alone. I thought I'd check out the supermarket and look for some stuff to get. I made a little mistake though, because I wore a red shirt that kinda looked like what the store employees wear, but if you really paid attention, you'd see it wasn't the same. Anyway, I was scavenging around the market and found some Doritos and some cereal. I made my way over to the electronics section searching for batteries when I saw an older man struggling to reach some DVDs on a high shelf. Since I'm tall, I decided to help him out. He said thanks, I can read lips, and went on his way. After that, I kept looking for the batteries when suddenly a lady in her late 40s grabbed my left wrist and slapped me. I was confused because she was saying something, but I couldn't understand her lips. She spoke too fast. I caught a few words like you, ignore, and job. So I tried to sign to her that I'm deaf, but it seemed to make her even more upset. She gave me the death stare and started jumping around and started yelling again. I still couldn't make out what she was saying, so I grabbed my notebook and pen to write down that I'm deaf and mute, but before I could finish, she took them away and slapped me again, pushing me to the ground. She got on top of me and put one hand on my throat and her other hand was in a fist, threatening to punch me. After about 5 seconds, luckily a store employee came over to see what was happening. He saw me on the ground. The worker rushes over and pushes her off me and then asked what happened, but I couldn't sign to him yet. The lady, who I now call Karen, started yelling at the employee. I couldn't understand what she said because she wasn't facing me. Then, I managed to communicate to the employee that I couldn't hear or speak. Luckily, he understood and explained it to the Karen. She still wasn't convinced and tried to attack me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote a message showing the employee to call the cops on her. He nodded and called the police. Karen tried to run away, but she was really slow. She was at least 250 pounds, so she wasn't moving much. The way the security guards ran to her, you would think they were chasing an Olympic runner. As soon as security got to her, they violently tackled her to the ground and put her hands behind her back while she was laying on her stomach. I saw the security guard take out their phone, which I later found out was the police. The police came after about 10 minutes. They talked to the employee first, who explained that Karen assaulted me because she thought I was a store employee who ignored her. One police officer came to speak with me, and I wrote everything down to show him what happened. There were enough witnesses for the police to be sure that nothing that transpired was my fault. It was all 250-pound Karen. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes without hesitation. They put Karen in handcuffs and took her away in a police car. The store manager then explained that Karen got angry because she thought I worked there, and I ignored her. But I couldn't see her since she was on my left side, remember? The manager felt bad about the incident and offered me a 50% discount on my purchases. I texted my sister about what happened and she was furious. Oh, by the way, my sister is a lawyer. She told me she'd handle the case herself and make sure Karen gets what she deserves. The court date is in about 40 days and I'll update you all about what happens after that. Karen attacks me for not giving her son a black belt after 1 day of karate lessons. She instantly regrets it. I, female, 28, run a karate dojo for kids, so I'm used to crazy moms, but this one Karen in particular was the worst. It was a regular ordinary Wednesday. Wednesdays are the day where we host most of our sign-ups, so we are used to a lot of new faces on these specific days. A wild mother in her late 30s walks into the dojo. She comes in and is trying to find out everything about it, but not in a good way. Like she's asking me condescendingly how often I clean, how skilled our instructors need to be when I hire them, and if I can give her any discounts. Every answer I give her is not good enough. She introduced her son to me. He was a very nice boy. He didn't resemble his mother at all. Don't get me wrong, his mother was bearable, but she was starting to get on my nerves. Around 30 seconds of me meeting her child, she then asked how soon her son could get a black belt. I explained to her that it can take up to 5 years and a lot of training. She squints a little bit and says, "My son is very good." I sigh and say, "Okay, let's see how good he is." When I meet the son for the second time, he flipped a switch. To him, the definition of karate is imitating the moves Ralph Macchio did in Karate Kid. He's basically making a fool of himself. So I try to teach him the right way to do karate, but he's just acting like he knows everything already, and he won't listen to me at all. Then comes the time in the class when my students have to go head to head in matches. The new kid gets matched up with a girl who also happens to be one of my best students. Even though she doesn't look like much, she knows how to use her body. The new kid immediately starts laughing that he's been matched up with a girl and says he's going to kick her butt, But as soon as they are given the signal to start their match, my student has this kid on the floor within seconds. And he starts saying how the match wasn't fair because he wasn't ready. Meanwhile, his mum's been there the whole time sticking up for her son and putting down our company. When she sees the match go down, she starts telling me how it wasn't fair and how he was looking the other way when he was leveled by this chick. I tell her that maybe he will do better when he comes back next time because class is over. I try to be nice, then she starts asking me whether I can give her son a black belt again. I tell her no, that it has to be earned, and based on her son's experience, it can only get him in trouble. And if he starts bragging that he's a black belt, someone is going to put him to the test and beat him up. But she doesn't stop, she just keeps begging me to give him a black belt. She even offers to pay me more money. Finally, I say, look, just leave, I never want to see you or your son again. She's already pretty mad at this point, and I guess that set her off. She gets up in my face and demands that I give her a black belt. She said if I didn't, there would be huge consequences. Consequences that I do not want to find out about. Listen, I am not scared of this woman. I am a trained fighter, and if she wants to show the quote-unquote consequences, she could be my guest. I look at her and just say no. She immediately jumps on me and starts scratching and biting and pulling my hair. She got me to the ground, but I put her in a headlock. This crazy Karen starts biting my elbow, so I let go. I get back up on my feet, and as soon as Karen gets back up, I level her with one kick. It was bad. She fell back down and her two front teeth were on the floor. Of course she calls the police. The police actually knew Karen, her first and last name. They had several run-ins with her before. After a couple hours, the police were able to figure out the true story and she was arrested. Entitled Karen demands me to be her servant at a store I don't work at, so I told her to have fun in prison. I worked as a trainer for a very popular cell phone company for a while. I would regularly visit cellular carriers, do events for customers, and train employees on relevant new features and items. So I was almost always dressed very well. The most dressed down I ever got was a polo, dress pants, and dress shoes because I wanted to give a good and professional impression. However, my style of dress came with the greatest Karen bait known to man. I had finished up later than usual and was browsing the groceries for the next couple of days at a supermarket whose logo was a bullseye. I was browsing some spices, debating on if I had enough of a few kinds to make a chili when I heard a faint noise behind me. I squeeze in a bit closer, ensuring I'm not blocking the aisle. A second or two go by, and my spider sense tingles. And then I hear the dreaded sound that in the retail wilderness is both terrifying and amusing. Excuse me? Ah, yes, the mating call of the wild Karen. I turn around to see a specimen of at least 40 years of age trying desperately to be mistaken for her own daughter in what I can only assume was a pair of yoga pants, furry t-shirt that was strategically unbuttoned, and a huge pair of sunglasses acting as a solar panel for her "let me speak to your manager" haircut. I pushed my cart further away and swept my arm where I was standing. Sorry, didn't know I was blocking you, I say, but alas, Karen did not want to graze the spice rack. You see, she had used her cosmic powers on me without me realizing, because now I was no longer shopping for dinner. He had granted me employment, and Karen was not pleased with my performance so far. I need you to help me find something. It seems to be lost on Karen that the store uniform is khakis and a red shirt. I am wearing a blue and white dress shirt, dress pants, and a company logo jacket that doesn't even look like an employee's. I smile and politely say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." Her eyes narrow and the games have begun. "You're wearing a uniform, don't give me that attitude. You can put up that garbage when you're done doing your job." My eyebrow rises and I hear the ringside bell in my head. Karen, game on. So with my best voice and smile, I say, "What was it you needed help finding, ma'am?" I see the flinch. I said "ma'am" and she didn't like it. In the same condescending tone, she wails, "I need to find a watermelon." I nod and push my cart along as I head to the rear of the store. She doesn't look pleased that I'm bringing the cart. As we reach the book section, I move the cart right over and start down an aisle. Now Karen is really angry. "Where the heck are you going? I'm looking for a watermelon. If you're too stupid to find it, then maybe I should be talking to your manager." This is drawing a crowd from the nearby electronics section. My plan is working out better than I'd hoped. I grab a thin copy of a toddler's first spelling book in front of the children's section. A few letters are playing with a small child on the cover and a title about learning the first few letters of the alphabet. Perfect. Walking back to the red-faced Karen, I offer the book. I don't say anything, I just extend my arm, showing her the cover. Like most people would, she takes the offered book, looks at it, looks at me, and growls, "What the heck is this? Are you stupid? Where is your manager? You're absolutely awful." Her wailing has attracted at least 2 employees who seem to recognize the whiny wails of the retail native Karen. With a smile, I gesture to the book in her hands and say my absolute best customer service voice. "Actually, ma'am, I thought since you can't tell the difference between a customer and an employee, you must not be able to read. So I figured this book can help." Stunned silence. When the employee finally made it to us, they were unaware of what I said, only that I was smiling in a customer service kind of way. Karen was still all mouth agape at what I said when they tried a polite greeting. "Hello? Is there something I can help with tonight?" She threw the book at me and started screaming. I dodged the book as her howls of rage wound up. "How dare you talk to me that way? I want this man's manager right now. He needs to be fired." Oh no, she still didn't get the point. Maybe I should have started with an easier book? Dr. Seuss? Maybe something on tape? The employee is trying desperately to put out the fire that is Karen. When the manager arrives, the woman is pulled to the side and he speaks to her, trying to calm her down. The employee standing near me looks at me and, with a bewildered look, asks, "What happened?" Not wanting to spoil the punchline, I just kind of made a face and softly said, "Didn't the haircut clue you in?" Big mistake. The employee chirps with laughter and he quickly chokes off. I don't think he expected me to know the dorsal plumage of the wild Karen. But Karen heard the sound and went from slowly lowering to a shrill string of complaining back to seething anger. After another few minutes, the manager gets her to step aside and comes over to talk to me. He begins asking all sorts of questions she obviously decided to embellish. "Did you throw a book at her? Were you following her?" Things like that. Things that could be claimed with only the closest concept of reality. So, in a pleasant voice, I explained how I was shopping and she demanded I show her where an item was and refused to accept that I didn't work there. This caused the manager to frown as he looked at me. He saw how I was dressed, and I think some light in his eyes actually died. He probably realized he had to think worse of humanity than just 5 minutes ago, and it took another piece of his soul. I've been there. So I smile and nod as I see his reason out that I was basically kidnapped to find something for this woman. And all the tumblers in his mind seem to fall into place. I nod and say, since she can't read and might be colorblind, I got her a book on the alphabet instead. I figured if she knew how to read, it would fix all her problems. She threw the book at me, cussed like a sailor, and wanted you to fire me. The employee standing nearby is done for. He begins to laugh, hysterically. Full belly laughs. Karen is mad that the employee is laughing, having at least the sense to know that she's the butt of the joke. The employee who walked away laughing came over and escorted me back to the grocery aisle and told me that she was going to be detained and barred from the store. He was in a good mood, except maybe having to clean up her tantrum, and we joked about the vast level of stupidity we'd been graced to see. A few minutes later, I checked out and was walking to the door when 2 police walked in, rather annoyed looking. I left with a smile on my face.